Hello, Peter the Booklover here, and this is the movies that I watched in June of 2024. Let's talk about it. Hello, everybody. Peter the Booklover here. I want to thank everybody for coming by. Thank you for coming to see my videos. If you've been here before, welcome back. And if you're new here, welcome. I want to thank you for coming by. And let's talk about some movies that I watched this month. This is the movies that I watched of June 2024. And I watched some pretty interesting movies. Some movies weren't as good as the others. And this is a new type of video that I decided to make. Because I read a lot of books, but I also watch a lot of movies. I actually watch more movies than I read books because whenever I take a break from reading a book, I usually watch a movie. So I'm going to talk about all the movies that I watched. And I've got, what do I got here? 9 movies? 10 movies? So, and some pretty interesting ones. So let's talk about it. Let's start off with number 1. This is a war drama from 2002. This is directed by Roman Polanski, starring Adrian Brody, Thomas Kretschmann, and this is The Pianist. Now, this is a World War II movie set in the Holocaust, and this is a drama. Now, I compare this to Schindler's List, and this is a great movie. I really enjoyed this movie, but at the same time, it did not stir the emotion in me when I watched Schindler's List. When I watched Schindler's List, it literally brought me to tears. I mean, I was actually crying when I seen the movie because it's just so horrific, and it's very sad, and it's just really depressed me, and it was really hard to watch because I was very sad. Now, this movie, The Pianist, is difficult to watch, but at the same time, I never felt sad. Although, at the same time, I felt kind of shocked on how people were treated, and it's a very eye-opening experience about the people who were Jewish in World War II and what they had to go through. And what's interesting about this movie is that it starts with the family being successful. And they're a successful Jewish family in Germany, and they just go through hell through this movie. And it's a wonderful movie, and I highly recommend it. This I watched a little bit before June. So, and I wanted to talk about this because this was a fantastic movie. And Roman Polanski did a great job with this. Roman Polanski is actually the director that did Rosemary's Baby, and I really enjoy that movie as well. Okay, now the first movie that I watched in June of 2024 is a movie called Lady Hawke, and this stars Michelle Pfeiffer. This is Rutger Hauer, Matthew Broderick, and Leo McKern. And this is also directed by Richard Donner. And this movie was entertaining to watch, but really doesn't have a satisfying ending. Now, the best part about this movie, in my opinion, is the music to it. This is great video game music. If you ever played video games, sometimes video games have some of the best music that's very repetitive, and this music in this movie was pretty cool. Now, if you're an animal lover, at the 40-minute mark, there's a difficult scene to watch, but I checked and no animals were hurt making this movie. Although sometimes it really gives you the appearance that they were hurt. But I checked it out and they didn't get hurt. There's a hawk that does a fantastic performance in this. I love the hawk. And, you know, it really, at the 40-minute mark, if you watch this, it's really difficult. And this is a good movie, but at the same time, it's got a very unsatisfying ending. The ending is like, they really don't explain and how they fall under this curse. And if this movie had a better explanation of why things were happening, this would be a way better movie. But at the same time, I really enjoyed it. It's a good movie, but I wouldn't highly recommend it. Okay. The third movie that I'm going to talk about in this video is an old classic. This is from 1941. This is the story about werewolves. This is The Wolfman, starring Lon Chaney Jr. and Claude Rains. And this is a classic. I haven't watched this for a long time, and in my opinion, it's a little dated and it's not as scary as I thought it was. But it's still an entertaining movie. It's a classic movie. Great performance by Lon Chaney Jr. And I liked it a lot. But at the same time, the next movie I'm going to talk about is just a little bit better. The fourth movie is another horror movie from 1931. And this is a great book. I love this book. I've heard some people say they don't like this book, but I love the story of Frankenstein, written by Mary Shelley. It is a fantastic book, and this movie was actually pretty good. A lot of people said they don't like this movie as much as the book, and the book is deeper than the movie, but at the same time, I really enjoyed it. This is like the first time I watched it. This has Colin Clave playing Frankenstein. Boris Karloff plays the monster, and he does a fantastic job playing this monster. Edward von Sloan is in this. This guy is actually Van Helsing in the movie Dracula. And also Dwight Frye, which is Renfield in the movie Dracula as well. Dwight Frye is an interesting actor. I like his performance as Fritz. And yeah, this was a fun movie. And Frankenstein was a very interesting character. And I love the way they formed a mob and came after him. It's a pretty cool movie, and I would highly recommend it. Although a lot of people say that it's kind of silly. But I thought it was pretty good. I liked it. For the first time seeing it, I was kind of impressed. I enjoyed it. So, I would recommend this one. Now, the next one is a movie that was filmed. This is a miniseries, not really a movie. This is 4 hours long. And this was from 1999. Starring Tim Daly, Jeffrey McDiarmid, Deborah Ferrantino. And this is The Storm of the Century. This is a Stephen King story, and this was okay, but there are 3 things that I would change about this that would make this a lot better. The first thing that I would change is I would cut down the runtime. I wish this wasn't such a long miniseries. This would, in my opinion, would make a better movie. And the second thing I would change is the gore factor. This had very light gore in it, and if this had like the Friday the 13th treatment and it was gory and some of the scenes were bloody, I think I would enjoy this a lot more. And the third thing about this that I would change is they lack the breadth of people. See, I'm from Chicago, and in this movie they do a fantastic job of turning the small town into a winter storm, and they made it really look like a winter storm, and they did a fantastic job with that, but they did not do anything about people's breath, and it kind of took me out of it, because to tell you the truth, every time somebody said that they were freezing, myself, I was saying, no, you're not. I know you're not, because I don't see your breath. And by me being from Chicago, I'm very well aware that when people are cold, you can see their breaths. But if they changed those things, this would be a lot more interesting. The thing about the ending, too, is not my favorite ending. I would prefer a more happier ending than the one they got in this movie. This ending is like, I did not like it that much. But it was a decent Stephen King story, and I would love to see this in remade in a like hour and a half movie. It would be a lot more interesting because it had some really cool scenes and cool parts to it. Okay, now number 6 is from 1933. This one stars Claude Rains. Henry Travers is another actor in here. William Harrington. And Walter Brennan is in this movie. He's really uncredited, but he has a very small part in this movie. And he's an actor that I enjoy. This one, I wrote down the director, James Whale. I believe that's the same director that did Frankenstein. I forgot to write it down when I made this list because I'm new to this, but next video that I make of this, I'm going to pay more attention to the directors when I make this list. And I was going to do a thing of where I was going to have pictures of the actors and the directors, but it's really hard to do it these days with Google because they're constantly giving you more recent photos of people. They have the same name, and it's really hard to make sure you got the picture correct. But yes, this is an Invisible Man, and this was a pretty decent movie. This one was actually very funny to me. To me, this was a lot like watching a Three Stooges episode because it was funny. And when he was invisible and he was moving things around and he was throwing food in people's faces, I got a laugh out of it. But there are parts of this movie that gets very serious. And it's a pretty fun movie. And the way people react to him and the way the special effects are really great. You know, when he takes off his clothes and becomes invisible, they did fantastic special effects for this time. So I would recommend this one. This one is pretty cool. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Okay. The next one is Frankenstein Vs The Wolfman. And this one is from 1943. And this is directed by Roy William Neill. This has Lon Chaney Jr. as the Wolfman. This one has Bela Lugosi as Frankenstein, and it also has Dwight Frye in this movie as well. Now, this one, I really wasn't really impressed with this. The best thing about this is you finally get to see Lon Chaney Jr. change into the werewolf, and they show his face change instead of like in the original Wolfman to where they show his legs change. They improved that, but the Bela Lugosi really didn't do a good performance as Frankenstein. If you ever watched Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, and that has a better Frankenstein. Of course, Boris Karloff in the original Frankenstein did a better Frankenstein, but Bela Lugosi definitely did a better Dracula than he did Frankenstein. And this movie was kind of silly in my opinion, and it wasn't as good as The Wolfman or Frankenstein. But, you know, I'm glad I watched it. It was okay. Okay. The next movie that I want to talk about is from 1979. This is directed by Ridley Scott. This has a lot of great actors in here. This has Sigourney Weaver, John Hurt, Henry D. Stratton, Tom Skerritt, Veronica Cartwright, and Yoko Holm. That's Bilbo in the Hobbit movies, and Yofit Kipto. I think I pronounced his name right. And this is the movie Alien. Now, this is a fantastic horror movie. I think this is great. Although, I watched this with somebody that has never seen um, Alien before, and this wasn't a really good experience because the sound. Because we watched this on YouTube. This was available on YouTube, and we watched this, and the sound of this movie was very low, and I couldn't hear it. And I've got way better hearing than the person that I watched this with. And it's a shame because he wasn't really impressed with this movie because we really were having the hardest time to hearing this movie. And I still rate this movie pretty high. I enjoy this movie, but without us having the proper sound, it made the movie nowhere near as fun. But at the same time, this is a fantastic movie, and I highly recommend it. Although, maybe not on YouTube because you're going to have a really hard time hearing it. That was Alien. Great horror movie in space. Okay, the next movie is from 1986. This stars Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sam Wanamaker, Catherine Harold, Paul Shinar, Robert Davey, Ed Lauder, Darren McGavin, and Joe Reglabotto. I don't know. I'm sorry I didn't pronounce that name correctly if I pronounced it wrong. But this is a movie called Raw Deal. And I thought I saw this before, but I don't think that I've seen this before. And one of the best things about this movie is the Chicago scenery. I love the Chicago scenery, but this is a very cheesy guy infiltrating the mob and taking out the mob for the purpose of revenge. To tell you the truth, this would be a better video game than it would be a movie because there are some scenes that are very, very much like a video game to where he's riding around in a car shooting a bunch of people. This is not one of my favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger movies, but I'm glad that I looked into it. I did like the Chicago scenery, and it was kind of fun to watch, but at the same time, not my favorite movie. A lot of great actors, you know. There's the one actor that's from the movie Scarface, you know, and there's I've seen a lot of these actors in other movies, and it's quite a bit of actors you might be familiar with, but at the same time, this is not a really good movie. I definitely wish I would have watched Commando instead. Okay, and this is the last movie that I've watched in the month of June for 2024. It stars Edward Von Sloan. Stars Boris Karloff, Zita Johann, and I believe this is directed by Karl Freund. And this is The Mummy from 1932. And in my opinion, this is like one of the least scary horror movies that I've ever seen. I remember trying to watch this as a kid and never getting into it. Now that I watched it as an adult, I could see why I didn't get into this movie because it's just not as good as I'd like it to be. But, you know, I'm glad that I actually checked it out so I know that I don't like it that much. I definitely would not suggest this. As far as all the movies go on this list, I would say this is probably my least favorite. Although I'll tell you one thing about it that's the best selling point for it is that it's a very short movie, and it's got good music in the beginning. It's got this one song that I've actually played it on the piano. I forgot the name of it, but it's got a decent song for it. It's kind of creepy song that I really liked. I wish I remembered the name of it, but okay, so that's all the movies that I watched this month. This is the 8th of July, and I've already watched quite a few movies already, and I've watched some great movies. I've got some great movies that I'm going to talk about next month. And also, I hope you check out my monthly wraps-ups of all the books I've read at the end of the month. Once a month I make a video where I talk about all the books I've read, and I make another video where I talk about all the movies I've watched. And then I do other videos as well. And I want to thank you for coming by. And if you made it this far, you're really awesome. If you like what you've seen, please subscribe, and I will see you next month, and maybe a little bit more the next month. So that's the video. You have a nice day, and I will see you next time.